Ellen.
I'm Abby Ellen. I am a writer. This is my book, Teenage Wasteland. W-A-I-S-T, as in your waist. And it's all about childhood obesity. And it tells the story of my 6 years at fat camp. And it also tells the story of other kids who have been struggling with their weight and what parents can do to help.
So you spent 6 years at fat camp?
I did. I spent 6 years at fat camp from age 16 until 21, 22. I went for 2 years as a camper, and then I was a counselor working with these kids. And I had always wanted to write about them. I always wanted to write about this population.
And so did your parents make you go to fat camp, or was this a voluntary decision?
It was actually my idea to go to fat camp. When I was 16, my grandfather died and left me a little bit of money, and I said to my mother, I am going to fat camp. I was never obese at all. I was maybe 20 pounds overweight, but I'm short. I'm only 5'2". So weight shows up, and when I was 12, my grandmother said, you can't come visit me in Florida unless you lose weight. And so I had always had a little bit of a thing. I was a gymnast as a kid, and I started to gain weight and when I became a teenager, and I didn't like it. So I sent myself to fat camp, which was strange because most of the time, most of the kids were sent there by their parents.
So would you say you had an overall good experience? I mean, you spent 6 years there, so it was,
it's interesting, these camps, because part of the reason that kids keep coming back is because they go there and then they regain the weight. And so that's a large reason why they go back every year. I lost about 15 pounds my first summer, and I was the thinnest kid there. Mm-hmm. And the first year when I was 16, so I lost weight, and then I kept that off, and then for 2 years, and then I went to college, and I gained like the freshman 35, and then I went back heavier than ever, and it was mortifying because everybody said, "Oh God, she got so fat, she was so thin the last time she was here," but everybody did. That was what happened. You would go and you would lose weight, and then you would be psyched, and then you would turn around and go home and slowly gain it back. And some of my favorite friends are from fat camp still. This is, 20 years later, and 25 years later. And also, it was the one time when somebody else was in control of my food and someone else was in control of my exercise, and it wasn't on my shoulders all the time as it is in the real world. This is both good and bad, mm-hmm. because it has to be your own thing in the real world. That's how you have to be in control of it, but it was nice to let somebody else think about it for 2 months.
Did you gain, did fat camp give you a certain level of confidence?
Fat camp was great because I was a thin kid in a large pond. So there's nothing better, if you want to get your self-confidence zooming right up, go to fat camp, and you will just be a thin kid in the fat camp, and there's nothing greater than that. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time where there were a lot of guys around me, and that was sort of nice. I mean, not that they were guys that you would look at in the real world, but it was okay, and it was fun. It was good for my self-esteem. What was not good was then, I think, the cycle where just focusing all your attention on food and eating and what you want to eat and what you're gonna eat and what you wish you could eat, and that wasn't good.
So do you think it's better for parents to make the decision, for parents to send their kids to fat camp, or for the kids to actually make that decision?
I think kids should send that. I think for anything you want to do, if you want to lose weight, if you want to stop smoking, if you want to stop drinking, it has to come from within. Period. End of story. And that's the same, especially with kids and teenagers. They have to want to do it for themselves. And you as a parent cannot do it for them, and you can't force them. And if you force a child to do something that they don't want to do, especially when they're a teenager, they're going to rebel. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. So ideally, the child and you will talk about it together and say, this is what I want to do this summer, and you'll agree as the parent, or you'll work it out somehow that way, and you'll agree to it. I don't think a parent should ever force a child.
Could use one word to describe fat camp, what would that be?
Oh boy, one word to describe fat camp. Hungry.
Okay.
Hungry. People who had a lot of hunger, whether it was for food or love or friendship or connection or just big hunger.
To get maybe one funny story from fat camp or one like sad story from
So
fat
one
camp.
of the things that, at fat camp, what you do is you focus on food and you think a lot about food, what you want to eat once you get out of there and what you're going to eat and what you wish you could eat. And so you focus a lot about food. And when I was there back, 20 odd years ago, people would break into the kitchen at night and steal food. And one night, my counselor, Elaine, took me and a couple of other kids. We went to the Grand Union supermarket in the middle of the night, and we snuck out of camp. And I was wearing a hoodie, and so nobody would see what I looked like. If they ran into me, they wouldn't know I was a camper. And we went to the bulk food section, and we just stored up on all of these jelly beans and chocolate-covered peanuts and chocolate-covered raisins. And then we went to the hostess aisle, and we got all sorts of junk. And we ended up running into one of the camp directors there, and it was just like, oh my God, we're so busted. So I remember hiding behind, like the cereal boxes and just kind of wearing my hoodie and going like this. And then eventually the director left, and we went back in the car, and we just were like, okay, we're not gonna, we don't want anyone to know. So we tossed all the food into the bushes. That was that. And then the next day, we snuck into the bushes and we pigged out.
No.
And we ate all of it. And part of the reason was because we were weighed every single week. We would get on the scale and get weighed. And, the weigh-ins were very big and important. How much did you lose? How much did you lose? Everyone wanted to know. Well, I remember one week when I didn't lose a pound. In fact, I might have even gained half a pound. And I was paying for it myself. So, weight gain was financial loss, right? And also there was no reason because I wasn't cheating. I was following the diet to a T. I was really, really very disciplined. And so my counselor said, I think your body needs to, get a little jolt. I think really you need to shock your system. And you've been eating, so well and so healthily that now you need to shock your system. And I thought, okay. So that's why we went to the Grand Union to sneak out and pig out. And I'll tell you, we pigged out the next day. We went into the woods and we just chowed, and I lost 2 pounds.
Do you know anything about fat camps today?
I do, because when I was writing my book, I had to go visit them, and they're a little different. They do nutrition classes today, and the kids get some kind of psychological training, or they have rap sessions, and people can talk about how their feelings, and I don't know that they're run by psychologists, but at least they're making an effort. And different camps have kids journal and monitor their food intake, so the kids are responsible in a way, which is really good, because the kids have to be responsible for what they're consuming and what they're eating, because nobody's going to do it for them in the real world. It's going to be on their shoulders. And so they have to learn this behavior. And so I think they're really making an effort today to not sort of focus on weight. Some camps don't even weigh the kids every week anymore. So they weighed once in the beginning of the summer and then once in the end of the summer. I don't know how I feel about that, because on the one hand, getting on the scale was kind of, you would get obsessed and crazy about it, but on the other hand, it was a really nice thing to look forward to and have every week. Well, the book is Teenage Wasteland. A former fat kid weighs in on living large, losing weight, and how parents can and can't help. And I, Abby Ellen, was the former fat kid.
Awesome.